Hi,
Hi.
and welcome to episode 1. Today we're going to talk about self-care. So Lindsay and I are both full-time working moms
Mhm.
with multiple children doing multiple activities. And I think that as moms in, our country or the world, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do all of the things.
Mhm.
Um, and I think growing up, I don't know if it started with our generation, um, but it's like we have more access to more things. And so I think having more access to more things, and by that I mean like there's more experts out there on social media telling you how to be
Mhm.
a good mom or how to be a good partner, how to be a good community member. There's more influence on TV. Like this is what um the standard mom should look like. You've got your shit together. You're able to go to work, come home, make dinner. Like those are the TV shows that we grew up with or the movies that
Right.
you see. So like
Right.
the theory of moms being able to do all of the things all of the time um is exhausting and draining and ridiculous. So
Yep.
right? So like in reality, and I've gone to the doctors quite a bit lately because I myself am totally at burnout point. Like
Yeah.
I work full time. I've got 2 kids. We both have a kid that's neurodivergent, so that is its own full-time job as far as advocating for them in the
Mm.
school system, which is another topic we're going to talk about later. At the doctor's office, in the world, these kids show up as they are, and there's not a whole lot you can do,
Mhm.
and so that's a mental load on us, which contributes to the burnout. And so all of the things, right? The working, and I teach fitness classes and volunteer in various organizations. Um, and so, yeah, I'm at the point where I'm at burnout and having gone to the doctors recently, and he just looked at me, he's like, stop doing all of the things. And like,
Mhm.
where do I start? What do I get rid of first? Like,
Mhm.
because I wanna do all the things, and I don't know if it's, like, my FOMO
Yeah.
that I grew up like, we didn't do a lot growing up. I mean, we went
No, we
camping.
played in the
Yeah,
woods. We
and
played in the
yeah,
woods.
which I do love. I mean,
I mean, and that is actually a form of self-care.
and I feel like that is actually where I wanna spend all of my self-care is in the woods,
Yeah.
but it's getting to be winter here, and I don't like cold, so,
Mhm.
um, we'll still make it happen. But yeah, so burnout, mental load, like, all the
Yeah.
things that we are as moms is exhausting. And so, self-care, I feel like for us is the last thing that we put on our list. Like I have
Yes.
lists of everything.
Yep.
You do too? Okay.
Yep.
Like I think we
Yes.
got that from my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. That is
Yes.
totally a Fuller thing. So I have lists for everything. Like my to-do list, my like shopping list, my what do I need to ask the doctor list, the kids list. But like I don't have a like, what am I gonna do to take care of myself list?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? And so as a mental health professional, what are like so like we just said, we're both really full-time working moms. What are like 3 top things that you would have us,
Mhm.
our demographic, or even
Mhm.
those without kids, and you can totally
Yeah.
be burnt out without children. Believe me,
Yes.
it is, and or people after having kids can still be burnt out. So, like, what are
Right.
3 things multi-generational people can do?
Yeah. The very first one that I think of is getting outside.
Mm,
Um, and that is so crucial for not just mental health, but like lowering your cortisol levels,
mhm,
right? They say that the first 30 minutes of waking up, you should be spending 30 minutes outside.
mhm.
And it's not just getting outside, but I think it's also like making it a part of your routine. So when we talk about self-care, I'm thinking of these things that I'm talking about is something that we have to prioritize and put into just our daily living.
Right,
So that's why, I'm saying like the first 30 minutes of waking up should be 30 minutes outside.
right.
I'm not necessarily like ready to go run a marathon
No.
when I wake up, but I will sit outside
Yeah.
right on my step. If I can move my body, great, but it's really just that natural light, and the fresh air. So,
Do you think that, like, for somebody who maybe lives in an apartment high rise in like New York City, or somebody who doesn't want to go fully outside because maybe they have a small
mhm,
child inside or whatever it be, you can open a window
open
and
the
stick your face
windows.
in the window, like at the
Yes.
sunlight, or,
Yeah.
it's going to be darker earlier now. So as soon as that light comes out, get your face in it
Mhm.
as natural as you can or as close to it as you can.
Right. Well, and there's also the option too for those like infrared lights.
Yes. I
Um,
just got one of those.
did you?
Yeah. I have to figure out like timing of it because they do say like first thing in the morning because
Yeah.
it's like when that natural type of light is typically coming from the
Yes.
sun.
Right.
And so, for us who it's gonna be dark until like 7
Mhm.
and I'm up at 5,
Right.
trying to
Right.
try and control that circadian rhythm.
Right. Yeah. I
So
think also too the next thing that I would say for self-care would really essentially be some sort of meditation.
mhm.
I will be the first person to say
She can't do it.
I can't meditate. I am a therapist and I value so much practice what you preach.
Yeah.
I am so incredibly transparent with my clients. And so I always feel silly saying meditate because it's not something that I can do. Um, well, let me backtrack.
Okay.
I'm sure I could do it.
Mhm.
You got to practice, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like a catch 22 saying you have to practice doing meditation, but where do you find the time, right?
Right.
Because it's supposed to be your self-care,
Right.
right? So like I'm teaching myself how to meditate in time that I'm supposed to be doing self-care, and
Right.
I'm getting frustrated with myself.
Right.
Because when I try to meditate, I am so all over the place.
Right.
So if you can meditate, great.
Right.
But there's
5 minutes. 5
other
minutes. Yeah.
forms of meditation.
There is.
For me, meditation looks like lifting heavy weights and putting in like headphones, right? So it's just a way that my body and my mind can disconnect from all of the things
Okay.
around me.
But connecting to themselves more.
Yo, yeah.
Right.
Right. Well, when
So
I'm
like you're
lifting weights, I
right.
need to be like, all right, I'm
Focus.
targeting
Yeah.
my biceps. So
Right.
I have to have the mind body connection.
Well, you actually work your muscles 10% more when you're actually like with your brain not thinking of other things and being like you just said, okay, I'm
Hmm.
bicep curling, like I'm watching this muscle, I'm
Yes.
internalizing this, I'm theorizing, like I'm visualizing all of the things. You actually work them 10% more. So, that's part of the meditation.
Yep.
But that like you just said, that mind body connection
Yes.
is kind of the purpose of the meditation, right? So
Yes.
even though you're not
Yes.
necessarily like sitting and doing your own,
Right.
which has its own purpose,
Yes.
the vagal, regal stuff, but um being there in your body, focusing on what are you doing, you're slowing down your mind and
Hmm.
everything else, and you're
Right.
just in your body. Like that is kind of what meditation,
Hmm.
I mean, maybe just in certain people, meditation is much more spiritual and they need that full relaxation
Right.
with just their
Right.
mind, but
Hmm.
I feel like it has its own benefits. The exercise, obviously,
Right.
the endorphins and
Right.
stuff like that. But I also I have a much easier time with meditation.
Really?
I do. I spend a lot of time growing up. I would go to yoga with our grandmother.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
at the edge.
Yep.
And it was like little old lady yoga, but they let me join, and
I forgot
it was
about all of
that was,
that.
like, when I started
Yes.
really doing it, and then when I ran cross country in high school, my amazing coach, Fred Griffin, shout out, used to we would start cross country practice with yoga, and so I kinda started then, so I've had practice as a younger, teenager
That's right.
all the way
Yeah.
through, and, yeah, the little old ladies, they just toot the whole time, but, that's a different story. They just anyway, um, but I actually, and I will link the videos in the show notes that I created a 6 week, or I did a 6 week series a couple
Yep.
years ago, and I did 6 10-minute meditations. And
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
they were maybe not quite 10 minutes, but one was okay, like I'm going to consciously eat this thing, right? So I took an orange
Mm,
or whatever it was that I took, and I was like, okay,
yeah.
I'm peeling the orange. Like, wow, look at the color, look at the difference in colors, look at, what does it smell like? What does it feel like? And then you just slowly go through, okay, you put it in your mouth, like, what does it taste like? Is it
Yeah.
sour? Because they can
Texture.
be, yeah.
Yeah.
And then all the things through that. So I did that as one. And then there was another one where I did like the five senses, right? I think this is
Yeah.
something you do for like kind of like anxiety or maybe a
Anxiety
panic
attacks and
attack.
panics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what are five things you see,
Yep.
four things you hear, three things you smell, touch. I don't know exact order, but I
Feel. Yep.
yeah,
And then taste is
right.
gonna be one.
It's
'Cause,
hard,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah.
Because if you're just sitting there, what are you tasting? Spit, yeah. So
Leftover breakfast.
uh, toothpaste. So I will link those, but I did like sex, like so it's not necessarily that like meditation doesn't have to be just you sitting and breathing
Right.
and like
Right.
trying to quiet your mind
Exactly.
because that is a form, and if you can do that, like I can, because I've taught plenty of yoga or
Right.
Pilates, stuff like that. But this one I find might be more suitable for people like you who
Yep.
can't necessarily
Yeah.
do it. So I invite you to actually try all those videos, and maybe when we meet again,
I will report back
you will report back
my
how they
findings.
worked.
Yeah.
So I'll post those in so don't let me
Yep.
forget. So meditation and
Yep.
nature,
Yep.
two amazing things
Yep.
for well-being
Yep.
or for self-care.
I would also include, and I can put a link in the show notes as well, but um, there is stuff around like the vagus nerve,
Mm,
um, which really is what regulates your emotional, it's emotional regulation,
right.
is bilateral stimulation. And I actually just started this with Charlie and Ari. And it's, you put your headphones in your ears, and it's essentially really like another form of EMDR.
Mhm.
And
Wait. You're gonna have to words. What is that? Letters to words. Give me words.
eye movement, rapid eye movement,
Okay.
desensitization.
Got it. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
I think I butchered that.
I no.
EMDR.
Yeah. Eye movement. Desensitive. Desensitive. What? Look it up.
Desensitized.
Desensitized. I went to college.
um yes, and so really it promotes that emotional regulation,
Okay.
and it's gonna increase relaxation. It is, I would say, acquired, because what is happening is you're gonna hear different sounds in each headphone. um and the intention is that it will stimulate different hemispheres of the
Okay.
brain. So if I'm hearing noises in this ear,
You're looking for other brain.
my yeah,
Yeah.
my left ear, or my right ear, my left side of the brain is going to be activated. So it's
Right. Right, I get it. I
yeah,
mean, Rinley's doing the neurofeedback right now, and so it's kind of the same thing. Like they're putting electrodes in the brain to try to
yeah,
re-regulate based on
yes,
stimulations on a television screen.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah,
Um, so that they can find, it's just something they listen to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
You
so
can
you,
find
but
it
you
on
need
YouTube.
headphones for,
Yes,
okay.
yeah,
Because you need to have it different stimulations on each side.
yes,
Okay, that
right,
makes sense.
right.
So YouTube, you can find that on, and we will
Yes, I
link
have
it.
a really good one that I really like.
Okay.
Ari and Charlie put it on at first, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, take it out. This sounds weird."
Was it overstimulating or
It
just
can
sounded?
get, it can start out overstimulated,
Okay.
because, and what I noticed is my eyes move
Yeah.
each way that I hear
Oh,
in my
interesting.
in my ears,
Right.
but also like in my brain. So it's
Yeah.
like in my I'm like, wait, which, whoa.
Okay.
And it kind of forces you to just be like,
To
whoa,
stop.
and to really listen to like the sounds and
Mm.
what you're hearing. So I've really grown to love it. I want to do more research on it. I want to
Mhm.
learn more about it.
Mhm.
Um So that's something that
Those are your
it's
three.
on my list.
Yeah.
It's
The
in
study.
my notes app on my phone because we have
I don't
lists.
use that. I know. Mine are notebooks. I have 4 notebooks, various topics.
Wow. Impressive.
Well, anyway. All right. So those are your 3 self-care. So
Yes.
outside,
Yep. Meditation.
meditation and the bilateral stimulation. Did I say that right?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Something that I will follow up with those 3 topics or ideas is that I think a lot of us get bogged down when thinking about self-care.
Mm-hmm. Fitting it in, or what's the best thing for us? What's going to be actually the most beneficial?
Effective,
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to also look at our values as humans too,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm thinking, why can't I go to yoga? Why
Yeah.
can't I go to yoga and
Right.
feel great after, right? Because that's what people tell me I should do. They're like, oh, self-care. It's yoga. It's
Mhm.
spending, some time outside in nature.
Mhm.
But if I don't have values that align with what I'm going to be getting out of spending time in nature or going to yoga, it's going to feel more like a task,
Right.
right? So like what I'm thinking is doing yoga is breathing, right? Is mind body connection.
Right.
Maybe it's being around other people. Me, I don't like being around other people.
Mhm.
I am probably the most introverted extrovert.
Mhm.
It's a weird
Yes.
thing.
We're very similar that way.
Yes. So I would find that having to get up and get dressed, get in tighter clothes. I don't like tight clothes. I want to be in my sweats.
Mhm.
And going around people is not something that I value.
Mhm.
So yoga's off the table for me.
Right. So instead of yoga for you, where people might find their meditation, yours is more of a hard workout.
Yes.
That is your self-care.
I want to
That
wear
is-
some sweats and
Right.
just lift heavy
Right.
things.
Maybe listen to angry music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Party
Okay.
is that's my jam
I'm
right
like
now.
old school Linkin Park.
Oh,
I don't know. I think Tyler got me into that. My brother.
okay.
That is
I would not have expected that from you.
early 2000s, right? I mean, what are we talking? Anyway.
It's hysterical. So yeah, I just want to also like put out there that self-care does have to be intentional.
Intentional, right? Purpose driven, value inspired, and
Yes.
very individual.
Yes.
So finding out what is your relaxation techniques.
Yes.
Maybe a work in progress. If you're not somebody who's taken the time to do much self-care, especially after maybe becoming a mom, and like things are harder or different in your life. Your schedule is much different. What are your values? What are the things that drive you?
Mhm.
And what new things maybe can you try? I have a group of friends who have started doing line dancing, and
Oh, that's fun.
I know. I haven't gotten there, and I'm almost a little intimidated, but as a previous cheerleader, I feel like I maybe be able to figure out some dance moves. But so I would say for my top 3 self-care tips, I agree with the nature thing. Getting outside, and even if you can't get outside first thing in the morning, which is ideal for circadian rhythm reasons,
Right.
for releasing cortisol, all the things, is getting outside at least 20 minutes sometime throughout the day.
Yeah.
Right. I try to walk, because if I'm not moving my body, it's hard for me to quiet my mind.
Yeah.
Similar to you.
Yep.
Uh I can do it. But I I prefer to move. And we grew up outside.
Yeah.
We we're pre-TV. I grew up with 4 channels, maybe 5
Uh-huh.
channels, until I was 12. I
Yep.
don't know. And we would go to our grandmother's house to watch TV. Because she had cable. And we did. Oh, I didn't. I don't know if you did, but no.
I didn't stay in
No.
any place long enough to
Yeah,
have
it's true.
a cable
Right.
subscription.
Yeah.
I moved 9 times before the age of, or 13 times before the age of 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and you like being at my house, we lived on 10 acres. And
Mm,
so we went outside all of the time and lived with a bunch of kids. And so we were always outside creating things, climbing trees, digging holes, putting chicken eggs in them and making soup. I don't know.
yeah.
With tree sap, we thought tree sap was gum. So we chewed on it. That did
I
not
forgot about that.
turn out good.
Mm.
So outside, like nowadays I send both of my kids to an outdoor school.
Yep.
Well, one day a week. They're out of public school on Wednesdays. They go to an outside school. They're there from 9 to 3 for the whole day. They even go pee outside and they have a tarp, they have a fire going, they eat outside, they have something called sit spot, which maybe as adults we should find time to sit spot outside, and they just create their little space in nature. They can create fairy houses, they can create like a little fort with sticks, they can just be there,
Mhm.
and they sit there for maybe 20 minutes, and it's its own maybe sort of meditation, but you're in nature with all of the elements, trying to connect your body physically with the
Yeah,
earth.
the
So
grounding.
yeah, very much
Yes.
the grounding. So like walking outside barefoot,
Mhm.
super ideal, or just connecting, like hugging. I mean, you can go hug a tree if you want, but like maybe even just touching the tree or using the sticks like to build like a little fairy house or something, like taking that child like play back into your life. That is
Yeah.
really, really, really hard for me. Like I
Yeah.
do not want to play with my kids. And I feel like the
Yep.
easiest way is maybe to go to nature and just create something, because I don't feel like I can play unless I'm creating. I guess
Yeah.
maybe that's I hated playing Barbies with you, but
But you did it.
but so being in nature, connecting to nature in some way or another every day is my first self-care tip. Second is you are what you eat,
Mm.
and um, you know, this world, especially America, I'm gonna call it out. I don't know if you've seen, but lately they're calling out the cereal companies and having the food dyes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there needs to be more calling out on food companies in America, because a lot of other countries ban, like, I don't know, something ridiculous, like 144 chemicals in our food system that are banned in most other countries. So you're ingesting shit, literal toxins all day, every day, if you're not aware of what those are.
Those pool chemicals are so
Right,
delightful.
right. It's like the pesticides and what was it? Not Rogaine. What is
Isn't that hair growth? It's probably in there.
it's Roundup. Roundup is so different than Rogaine. Okay, anyways, it's in your food. Um, so trying to eat as whole food based as you can. So like eggs and
Yep.
fruits and vegetables. And I'm not saying like change your diet abruptly. It'll take time. It takes time for your gut to adjust to those things, especially if you're adding more fiber into your diet, which is another huge thing to feel full. And for your body to be regular so that you can get all of those toxins out of your gut where everything
Mhm.
sits, and is your second brain,
Right.
obviously. So eating in a way that makes you feel better. I notice personally, like in the morning, if we go to the bakery and I get a scone or something heavy carb, and like that's what I eat for breakfast, I feel tired by like 10.
Mm.
I am cranky, my brain does not work, hungry, obviously, because that had zero nutritional value. So I'm aware of that more often, and either eat it with a full meal or maybe eat it as, a snack later in the day, because carbs, well, we'll get into this another day, but carbs later in the day has benefits for various people in various types of adrenal situations. But anyway, so nutrition um is a huge self-care thing, and I don't want people to be like, oh, it's a diet, like you have to diet. No,
Mm.
it's a way of life. It's
Right.
being conscious with your food too, like I was saying before, that meditative eating. It's like, okay, we're not religious. We did go to church with Graham quite a bit, but we, you know used to be, back in the day, families would sit down to meals and they would
Right.
all
Yep.
pray over the meal. um there's something about putting thanks into the meal in front of you.
Mm.
um taking time to recognize, okay, I have the protein, I have the starch, I have the vegetable, I have the things, like these things are going to do this stuff in my body. Similar to that mind body connection is connecting your body to the food before it even enters. So kind of being like sitting here before you eat, recognizing this food, and then also being intentional with the food the whole time. So it's not just nutrition itself, it's the way you eat. It's
Right.
what you're doing while you're
Right.
eating.
Right.
I have a hard time eating by myself.
Mm,
And so then I either need to read or write or
I don't.
phone. You're fine eating by yourself, like
Yes.
without any other stimulation?
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
I can't. I have to like, I don't know, multitask. Well, I need to work on that. We're not experts at this at all.
No.
Self-care is tricky.
Well, I think you brought up something interesting too, though, is when I go to get a scone in the morning, that serves a purpose,
Yes,
right? Like it's okay to have that scone.
it is.
Eat the scone, eat the cupcake,
Right.
right? But being mindful
Of how it
of
makes your body feel.
how it makes your body feel, and also like, is this something that is going to fill my cup
Mm-hmm.
in a way that
Is
something
lasting.
else, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Right, because I mean, if you eat the scone, it's fine. Eat it with a meal so your blood sugar doesn't drop. You
Right.
know, like eat it with the eggs and the bacon.
Right.
Maybe don't eat as much of it. So, like, because food is for me, and I'm guessing you too, is very therapeutic in its own.
Yep.
But it's, it's like, oh wow, like this is awesome. I really like the taste of this. Like this is enjoyable. As it should be, as should food should be. It's
Mhm.
just we've gotten so far away from what food is in this country that it's like just more toxic than anything. So,
Right.
um, so so nature, nutrition, and then obviously my background is nutrition and exercise. So
Yep.
my self-care is always movement. Like sometimes I will feel like kind of crotchety
Mhm.
and then
Mm.
or uncomfortable or like I'm starting to just get angry with everybody and y'all are just annoying. And I'm like, oh right, I've been sitting here for 3 4 hours
Right.
at work or whatnot. I need to move. So I do
Yep.
have a folding mat in my office. I'm lucky enough that um my office is giant, and then I also live a half mile away from home. So if I really wanted to go home and
Yep.
work out, I could, because I can work remote. So I think movement, but not necessarily just exercise. Like self care, exercise can look 100 different ways for
Yes.
self-care. Like it
Yes.
can be like if you have like we talked about values
Mhm.
and maybe intention. Like if you have an intention to squat a certain amount of weight or
Right.
build a certain type of physique or like be able to have functionality as I get older, that's more of what I want to be able to do is move without
Yeah.
pain or just have the movement to be able to play with the kids or do the
We
things.
will not talk about my time trying to put socks on this morning. Jordan and I were like, we need to stretch.
Yeah, so
Yes.
having a purpose in your exercise, and I know a lot of times like with you, and I used to do this too, or wish I could still, but anyway, it's like getting a really hard workout in and getting all of
Yeah.
those endorphins is so therapeutic and it's just like brings you down to the level of like that self-care was totally worth it. But self-care can literally be sometimes what I do is like I'm just feeling awful in my body, but I do not have the strength, the power, the energy, the mental strength to do a workout. Like
Mhm.
that would give me endorphins, right? Sometimes I just lay on the floor and I
Oh my
stretch.
God. No, listen. I laying on the floor
Yeah.
is my
Yeah.
jam. No.
Yeah.
So when I was working, so I worked 2.5 years at a residential mental health treatment facility.
Yeah.
Um and I would oftentimes just lay on my floor in between sessions.
Mhm.
I don't have time to go for like a walk. Like
Mhm.
I have been sitting with like so much stuff
Mhm.
from
Your
my my
sessions.
my
Yeah.
sessions, and it gets heavy.
Mhm.
And I would always lay on my
Mhm.
floor and just stretch or just close my eyes. And oh my gosh, I love that you said that.
I think it hits all of
It
those
can be
points
so
though.
simple.
Right, because it's grounding in its own
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
It is a type of meditation because like you said, you need to not for a minute, not be feeling all of that heavy load from the day
Mhm.
from the clients. And I think just being on the floor, it kind of it's like brings you back to childhood almost or like infancy. And you're like, okay, I can just be, vulnerable in this
Yep.
position or quiet in this position.
Mhm.
So sometimes I'll just get up, go to the gym in my basement and just lay down and then just
Yeah.
start like rolling
Yeah.
around. Like just I mean, I
Yes.
just like and then I'm like, all right, like my body feels a little more normal. Maybe I'll try some squats and like do a couple squats. I'm like, all right, that felt good. Maybe
Yep.
I'll do some rows. And I just go through. Or sometimes I'll roll around and I'll be like, I can't do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
just stay on the ground rolling around or just stretch or do a little yoga or just
Yep.
so it does like the exercise part of self-care is really individualized, as is the nutrition.
Mhm.
What is your body? It's taking the time to listen to your body. What do you need? What's going to make you feel more comfortable?
Right. Right. And
Um,
again, it doesn't have to be an extravagant thing.
no.
Like I love that you brought up the floor.
Yeah.
My colleagues, if I was stressed, they'd be like, "Why don't you go lay on your floor?"
Yeah.
Like it was a thing.
Right.
And sometimes I would take my aromatherapy diffuser
Hmm.
and I would put it on the stand above my head and I
Hmm.
would lay on the floor and just kind of let the
Mist on
mist
you.
over me. And so, yeah, and I would feel so much better
Yeah.
after. Yeah.
I love that we both have very similar self-care techniques. And those are just your top 3, my top 3. I
Yep.
mean, there's hundreds of other ways to do self-care, going to therapy.
Yep.
Um yeah.
Hey, come see your girl.
So that, you know, you don't have to be a mental case. This is something I think that's new in the last decade or 2,
Yeah.
is the normalization of therapy, mental health therapists, especially as kids are growing up more and more so with
Mhm.
anxiety. I think going back to where I said at the beginning that burnout, being overstimulated by all of the technology,
Mhm.
because you're always getting pumped with information. You just don't have a break for your brain to one, slow down. Two,
Right.
maybe you're internalizing all of those things without having time to process them and see how they fit into your values, right? Like if you're getting all this
Mm.
information on how to be a better mom, how to be a better community member, but you're not taking the time to internalize, does that hold value with me? Do I
Right.
do I connect with that or does it not matter? Does it not influence
Mhm.
or make me, feel good or bad?
Mhm.
So talking with a therapist, can help give you that time to one process things that are happening in your everyday life, process things that your mind then goes to because of the stimulus that you're getting. um but like you don't have to have some severe trauma early in your life to have a therapist.
No.
I mean, I've
Everybody in this world should have a
a therapist,
therapist.
absolutely.
Just a safe space to be unapologetically yourself.
Yourself, right? And even still, like mine is very much just like validating, like, oh
Mhm.
wow, that sucked, yeah it did, but like thank you, that was helpful and now I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Um, so, therapy is another form of self-care. Connection, I think, even though we have ways to connect with people significantly more so than we did
Yeah.
50-ish years ago,
Yep.
75 years ago. Like we went to visit Graham, my daughter and I went to visit Graham and we were talking about how they didn't have TV. They had a radio.
Yep.
And there was like only on from 4 p.m. till whatever and it was like a show in the news and that was what you had to connect with outside of
Yeah.
your household, right? So you had to connect with the people in your
Mhm.
house, your neighbors, and things like that. Well, now you're getting all your information on phone, on
Right.
TV, I mean, on the radio still. Um but so you're getting all this information or maybe you're watching a show, um but there's really no connection. You can call somebody but it's like we've
Mhm.
lost the ability or the time or the ability to schedule the time because that's what self-care is. You do need to schedule it for yourself to connect with somebody being like,
Right.
hey, let's go for a walk, or hey, do you want to just come
Mhm.
sit or like watch a show or just be together.
Right. Okay, so but I'm gonna take this in a different direction.
Okay.
Um I don't, tell me if you resonate with this,
Okay.
but connection can also be what burns me out.
Absolutely, if they're not your people. So
True that. True that.
yes,
Yes.
and I knew that was going to say, because I was also going to say that, because I also feel and think that it's like you like there's certain people in my life who I connect with often because they're a coworker,
Right.
or like they're a client, or like, I coach their kid.
Mhm.
And like those conversations can be exhausting because that person is either very high. I don't know. There's people who have high vibrations, and
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah.
very,
Mhm.
yeah, I can't even say it. And then there's people that are just like, hey, I'm down here, and like those are our people. So like the I'll have to check with her to see if I can use her name, but the woman that grew across the street from me, so
Yep.
a friend of mine who I grew up with my entire life, I can be with and just release, relax,
Yeah.
because we grew up together. We have a
Yeah.
long, like lifelong history.
Yep.
We've been through a lot of things. And it's like one of those friends where it's like you don't see each other for a couple years because I moved away, and now I'm back, whatever, and like you just pick it up and it's
Yep.
just normal. And you come out of that connection feeling like more relaxed.
Yep. Right.
Those are the people you want to connect with. You don't
Yes.
want to have like a party or have those high energy people that maybe don't vibe with you. Maybe you do need that high energy connection. Maybe you
Yeah.
are one of those high energy
Great.
vibers. That's you. But like the connection needs to be purposeful and within your
Yes.
values.
Yes. Yes.
Um
I'm just thinking of like all of the messages from people that I have right now that I just haven't simply responded to. Not
mhm,
because I don't want to, but because my self care is I need to put my phone away
yeah,
and not connect with people
right.
because love you, but this girl needs some time and space
Right.
away. But that's also my value.
Right.
I'm a therapist.
Right.
I listen to people talk all day. I listen, to really heavy stuff. And so for me, I'm like, I need to put this phone away. I need to put these interactions to the side
Right.
because my brain is going to
Explode.
yes.
Right. So that is part of self-care too, is scheduling downtime. I am
Yeah.
horrible at that.
Yeah.
And so like if you can schedule, and I will say this is the last one for me for today, is if you can schedule 20 minutes a day where you sit and do nothing, I have a really hard time with
Mm,
that.
yeah.
But like to just sit and stare. Like it doesn't necessarily like you don't have to meditate.
Yep.
You don't have to be eating mindfully. Hard for me on the phone. I totally notice myself becoming more addicted to that thing, and I
Yeah.
need to just throw it in the toilet. But to just sit, and maybe it's on the ground, maybe it's in nature, but to just sit for 20 minutes and look, listen, and feel,
Mm.
stop, drop, and roll, and then I don't know, just just not. Like so
Yeah,
to have
just
time
not.
just have time
Just
to
be.
either let your mind wander or try to control it to not. Like that's your
Mhm.
choice, right? What is going to be more beneficial to you in self-care land? But I think like one of the huge things that we touched on today is it needs to be valuable to you.
Yep.
Like it needs to serve a purpose in what you need for your
Yeah.
well-being. It needs to be scheduled. So I schedule everything in my life,
Mhm.
aside from something that will serve me like this, right?
Right.
So that is something that needs to start happening.
Yep.
Scheduling.
And also knowing when you don't have the time, what is a
mm,
2-minute thing you can do, like how we lay on the floor.
right.
Like I'm thinking of, I'm in between. I just listened to a really intense session and I have someone coming in 7 minutes.
Mm,
What, I could do laying on the floor. I could do mindful eating, right?
right.
Like I could grab a chip and just be like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna eat this chip, cracker, orange, whatever. And
With purpose and
right,
yeah,
right,
connection and
right.
yeah.
Um, yeah. I think one last thing that is super important when thinking of self-care, and just the mindfulness realm is gratitude.
Mm,
Um,
mhm,
it is such a gratitude is such a shift in perspective, I
mhm,
think. So for me, I I intentionally, and this has come with a lot of practice. So don't think that this has come easy, but when I walk into my house and I see dishes in the sink, my initial reaction is, what the actual F? Clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not a maid.
Right.
I'm so
Well,
sick of this. Like, why do I have to do it? Right.
Right.
So, but then I'm able to catch myself and say, what a blessing it is that I have a sink,
right.
that dishes can get filled in,
Right.
that is food that I was able to provide for my family
Right.
to eat. Right.
Mhm.
So it's all just really being mindful of your thoughts
Mhm.
and shifting that perspective.
I think that would solve half of the world problems.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I work so hard with really anybody that I'm with. I just think of like Jordan recently. We're driving down the interstate and this car flew past us and was like weaving in between traffic, right? And our first instinct is, what an asshole, like insert all these thoughts and feelings towards this person. And I said, what if his grandmother had 30 minutes to live and he's trying
Right.
to get to the hospital?
Right.
What if his daughter is in labor?
Mhm.
Or, right, is to shift that perspective. Should that person be driving like a maniac? Probably
Right.
not, right? And like we still need to be
Right.
mindful of our surroundings and keep ourselves safe. But and there's not really much of a response to that because it's like, because I'll tell you right now, when I got the call that Graham
Was sick. Yeah.
was at the hospital, you bet your ass I was driving
100 miles an hour.
100 miles
Yeah.
an hour weaving in and out of traffic,
Right.
right? But people would have thought, wow, that girl's an idiot, right?
Right.
I mean, I should not have been doing that. But if they had known, right, that I was trying to get to my grandmother who
Right.
was in the emergency room,
Right.
perspective would have shifted. So it's the gratuity piece and shifting perspective of these negative experiences and giving each other grace.
Yes.
Right? I'm not making an excuse for that person's behavior.
Right.
I can't change that person's behavior. They're probably in Timbuktu by the
Right.
time I get to the Richmond exit because they're going 300 miles an hour.
Right.
But I can hold compassion or find different ways to think about that situation because I can't control that person, but I can control myself and I can control my thoughts and my feelings.
Yes.
And so you shift with that.
Yeah, and I think that applies to literally everything in life. Is and that's kind of like something that you would work on with a therapist is like um
Yes.
is so self-care is allowing yourself to have thoughts that allow you that grace.
Yes.
So, like, if you're self care and you're doing all of these things, you're like, I'm doing the yoga, I'm doing the meditation, I'm doing the therapy, I'm outside in nature, but I'm still feeling burnt out or
Hmm.
overwhelmed or understimulated, maybe. Um, Take a minute to figure out what is your mind saying to you throughout your day, right? So, like you
Yeah.
just said, you walk home and you see the dishes. I do the same thing. I'm like, wow, I spent all day
Yep.
cleaning because to me, this clean space has a,
Yes.
a mind that is more regulated.
Thanks, Mom. Debbie.
So, right. But also like having a clear space is
Oh, yeah.
statistically shown like to
Hmm.
declutter your mind too.
Yes.
So,
Generally, your space is a snapshot of your mind.
yes, that's why I cleaned my fridge out the front. So, I think that taking the time to plan your self-care, but also paying attention to what your mind is saying about yourself and
Mhm.
your self-care,
Yeah.
um, can be almost probably the first place to start, or if nothing else is working, where you really need to look.
Yeah. Those affirmations go a long way.
Yeah.
It feels silly to stand in front of a mirror and say, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am powerful.
Yes, all the things.
Right? It feels silly, but
They do work.
they do work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we could go on for days.
Probably.
And we have a lot of things to talk about. But I'm
Yes.
so glad that this was our first episode
Yeah.
and we kind of got things started on the self-care. I know we'll touch base on this again because there's so much more about this and there's so many like tangents that go off on self-care.
I know. I was like, I could go this way. I could go that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
So we'll definitely tackle this again and we look forward to questions, comments, anything you want us to cover in other topics, other episodes. We do have quite a list to get through. We took
Yes.
2 hours the other day at our grandmother's house creating a list of all the things we want to talk about and all the things we want to bring to you. So we look forward to your input and thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Bye.